So this project is going to be fairly easy, hopefully fairly fun, maybe very fun, and probably fairly experimental. Really what we're doing is we're kind of getting accustomed to Photoshop's filter gallery. We're going to go through quite a few filters, in fact a minimum of 15 for each image. And really what I want you to do is explore all the different types of filters to kind of get it out of your system. The one thing that a lot of experienced designers know is one of the pratfalls of a beginning or a junior designer is the want to over process imagery or over filter imagery. It's never a good idea. Now, there's a reason that these filters exist because they're extremely useful. Usually, the way that we use them is in conjunction with one another in order to produce a third or fourth or fifth type of result that you couldn't get there naturally on the first time. So say that you wanted a certain type of watercolor look, or you wanted something that looked like it was painted on canvas, or you wanted something that looked like it was made out of a coffee stain. We can go through lots of these tutorials, and towards the end of the semester, I'm going to have you guys run your own tutorials for projects. And when that happens, you probably will run all types of different filters. But as it stands, I'm just going to ask you guys to use some what we call in the can, and I'm making air quotes there, in the can filters, just to get a sense of what Photoshop can do and have fun with it. So here's the image that I'm going to work with. And just to let you know, really the basis of Photoshop, take a look at the original. If I turn the original layer off, now this is a pretty good image unto itself. It's nice and large, it's well balanced, it's well composed, it's got a lot of nice color. The image itself, the little girl, is very cute. But take a look, just by a couple simple curves, levels, and vibrance adjustments, and not to mention taking care of some of the slight shadows in the face and popping out the highlights in the eyes. Look at that. Look at that subtle difference. Before, after. That's the difference between a pretty good mediocre shot to a great shot. And that's all it takes is just those little subtle changes. Nothing over the top, nothing like we saw in Photoshop disasters. So I am going to be working with the final composite on this. And one of your future projects or exercises is going to be image beautification. So start getting in the habit of looking at images and figuring out what you could fix, be it slight blemishes, whitening of the teeth, shadows around the eyes, crow's feet, wrinkles, discolorations, wrinkles in the shirt, stains in the shirt, etc., etc. More on that later. First thing that I want to do though is I want to make sure that this image is going to be big enough to work with. So I'm going to go to image size, and this is something that you should always be doing anyways. And I can see that it is designed for print. Now you're not going to be working at print size, so your resolution is probably going to be 72. I could be wrong. You might be working from a digital camera file, and if that's the case, that's fantastic. So I'll change this to 72. The big thing here is I want to make sure that in pixels, not in inches, but in pixels, and your pixels might be at the top, make sure that your shortest edge, in this case it's my height, make sure that it does not go below, say, 700 pixels. As long as one value is over 700 pixels and the other one isn't drastically that much smaller, you should be in good shape. Ask once you find an image that you think you want to work with, we can look at it together. The reason that I don't want you to work with really small images is that the filters will severely alter them with just a slight adjustment of a slider. So they do want to be a little bit big. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. Alright, so like I said, I need a minimum of 15 different filters. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer 15 times. You should know a lot of different ways to do that. You could right click and choose duplicate layer. You could click, hold, and drag and move it to the new layer icon. With the layer selected, you could go to layer, duplicate layer. Or the way that I like to do it is Control J. And this will duplicate. So we're going to need 15 instances. I don't know how many I've got right now. It looks like I just hit 15 there. We're going to name each one the filter that we apply. Now, everybody's is going to be different, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start here all the way at the bottom and turn the visibility of all these clones off and just work at the very, very bottom here. Now, my bottom is locked, so it's not going to allow me to do anything. So I do need to double click on it, choose OK, and that unlocks it right there. So where are my adjustments? Where are my filters? They're right here under Filter. Let's start with a very common one. This is nice for depth of field, and that's going to be a blur. Now we got lots to choose from. I might have a few more than you. If you'll remember back to your Illustrator project, we did a surface blur when we were doing our tracing for project 2, so maybe I'll start there. I'll do a surface blur. And you can see what this is doing is it's really smoothing it out, and it's making it almost look like a painting. Now the higher I pull this radius and threshold up, really the more blurry it becomes. So you can kind of play around with these. Again, there's no right or wrong. I just want you to experiment. I'll go ahead and choose OK to this, and I will call this layer by double-clicking on it Surface Blur to let me know that's what the surface blur looks like. All right, the next layer, I'm going to go ahead and turn the visibility on. What am I going to try this time? I'll go to Filter. I will also do another blur. This time I think I'm going to try a motion blur. And this kind of creates the illusion of motion, as if something was moving very, very quickly. And if I up the distance, now it looks kind of unbelievable on this particular comp because there is no movement. But if you could imagine an athlete that's running, or a cyclist that's pedaling, or a race car that's moving really, really fast, these are really nice features to just add a little bit of emphasis to make it look like they're possibly moving faster than they actually are. Do it a lot on wildlife photography as well. So I'll go ahead and choose OK to this, and this one I will call Motion Blur. Now I'm going to experiment with something other than the blur gallery. I'll go to Filter, maybe Pixelate, and I'll try Color Halftone. Now, I know what some of these values mean off the top of my head, but you probably won't. Feel free to experiment. I'll just choose OK and see what the default is. And nothing happened. Well, to be fair, something did happen. I'm going to turn the visibility of this layer off. There's my color halftone. So what went wrong? This is a really good indicator. I wasn't paying attention. I was moving a little bit fast. I actually applied that filter to the wrong layer. I applied that color halftone to my motion blur layer, when in fact I wanted it to this layer right here. So just because I'm seeing this layer doesn't mean I'm necessarily active on the layer. So I'm going to use my history panel and jump back to before I applied that color halftone. Make sure that I'm on this layer, not the motion blur layer. Make sure that I'm physically on this layer by clicking on it, and then go to Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone, and choose OK. So what it does is it creates a faux impression of old school printing, which is actually pretty popular right now. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to actually enter my filter gallery this time by selecting it and going to Filter, Filter Gallery. Now you may not see the filter gallery. Your filter gallery may simply be in the filters. It might not have a separate partition. I'm going to do one of my favorite when I first started off, and that was watercolor. It kind of creates this fake watercolor effect. Maybe I'll up the amount of brush detail here, decrease the shadow intensity, and up the texture, and choose OK. So this one I would call watercolor, and this one was color halftone. So you are going to do this for a minimum of 15 times, 15 different filters, and don't rush through it. Experiment. You got plenty of time. I want you to become accustomed to these different types of filters. I'll do one more. Filter, filter gallery, and what looks good? Paint daubs, maybe? It's kind of interesting. What about something not an artistic? What about distort? Maybe I can make it look like it's made out of stained glass or an ocean ripple. Or I could try just sketch. Maybe water paper. I could change the fiber length to something very, very long or something very short. Deselect. Ooh, you can see that by deselecting the brightness or dropping it down, it gets very dark very quick. So some of these can go a long way very quickly. So this one is water paper. So again, you'll have 15 layers, all named what the filter was. You will file save as. Make sure that you save it as a PSD because you need those layers intact. Labeled your last name, and this will go to our Google Classroom. I'll even put the underscore and put Project 5, which this semester it is Project 5. In the future, if it does change, make sure that you just put the correct project number. And choose Save. Make sure that you save it in a place that you remember. And if you're not using your jump drive yet, you need to. I've already had 2 students within the last 2 weeks lose all their work. So make sure that you're backing up your work. That's it. Have fun, experiment, and our next project will build off of this. Good luck.